everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I am simply honored today to be chatting with Lisa Obeso. Lisa and I met, I think, a few years ago or so at a sober Facebook group, and it's been such a beautiful journey for me to be able to watch her whole story unfold. A little bit about Lisa. She, as a child, witnessed a lot of drinking as her mom and stepdad owned a bar in San Diego. And then she was given alcohol and marijuana by, multiple babysitters at the age of 9. And then at the age of 13, this escalated from alcohol, marijuana to meth, which she did for about 15 years. Through that, she had and lost her 5 children, and she was in and out of multiple rehabs. Fast forward to today, and then we're going to dive into more of her story. Uh, Lisa is almost, in April, she said, almost 5 years sober. So congratulations on that, honey. That is huge.
Thank you.
She has an amazing,
No, go ahead.
I said she has an amazing connection with God, a loving relationship, and has 4 of her grown children back in her life. And I would be putting it mildly to say that you've overcome lots in your life. So I'm simply thrilled that we actually get to talk today. So thank you so much for being a part of this, honey.
Oh, well, it's awesome to be here. Awesome to be able to say that, and awesome to see you. And I'm ready to dig into this.
Good.
Yeah.
So at 9 years old, that is something.
Yeah. Yep. I remember my mom and my stepdad. They owned their bar, and they owned that for at the age of 9 is when they bought the bar, and it
Right.
was I went from having them home all the time to like being gone. They had to run their bar.
Right.
And I had other half brothers and sisters, but they didn't live with me. So it was like I went from having them at home to being gone until they closed their bar at 2 in the morning.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was
Yeah.
pretty much a latchkey kid. I stayed home and I was alone a lot. And so instead of that, my mom started getting her bartenders to babysit me.
Okay.
And yeah, and so I remember like the first time, well, actually the first time my stepsister took me into her house to babysit me, and she just handed me the joint as it was going around the room. And I remember I took a hit off of that, and I guess I was a hyperactive kid. So that's why they kind of wanted me to chill out a little bit, and they thought it was cool. They give kids weed too. So it was like a common thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember stepping outside and just not knowing where I was at. And I just remember that feeling, and it wasn't a good feeling. Wasn't a good feeling. But after that, it probably was about, I would say 2 months later, another babysitter, um, she decided to give me shots of whiskey,
Oh,
and she's actually the lady that gave it to me is still in my life to this day, and she feels super bad about it. But she also gave her own daughter that was my age shots of whiskey, but she thought in her own mind, she thought, okay, so I'll only give them one shot every 20 minutes. That shouldn't be so bad. And maybe give them water in between. Well, at the end of about the 7th shot, I remember
oh
just
my
being
goodness, honey.
so drunk and just laying on the floor, and my mom came to get me, and she was so upset. And
Yeah.
she's like, I'm just like you now, mommy. And I remember her just feeling so horrible, and because they drank, but I think my stepfather really was an alcoholic. I mean, he was a mean, violent person, only to me.
Oh, wow.
And I think there was a jealousy thing going on there. So, but I just remember day, after that day of getting drunk, I loved the feeling of being drunk and being escaping.
Mhm.
And So this went on. My parents had a full bar in their garage, and so um, I would just I would get into their bar when they were gone, and then I'd be asleep, passed out before they got home.
Right. Right.
And so then I remember one day my stepfather and mother decided to have a party at their house, and they got into their alcohol and nobody was getting drunk, and they were wondering what was going on. I had watered down all of their alcohol,
Oh, yes. Oh.
and my stepfather was so angry with me that he grabbed me and took me to the police department and told them that I wasn't that I was out of control. And that was I'm almost positive it was right before my 12th birthday. So um, they told him, they said, the only problem she has is you, sir.
Oh, good for
And
them.
but they did keep me, and they put me in a receiving home. And I was there. I was there only for probably about a week. And then my mom just put her foot down and said, no, this isn't happening. And so I went back, and me and my stepfather just did not get along. He would come home drunk. He would expect me to have the house clean. At that time, we didn't have call waiting. So um, if the phone was busy, and mind you, they would stay out until 2 a.m. So I was home alone at this point in time. And so I'd be on the phone like
Yeah.
a typical kid. And if the phone was busy, he would come in just screaming and yelling. And um, so I got super bitter,
I
I
bet.
got
Yeah.
bitter, and I just got into the drinking more and more. And so then it came down to probably around 13. Um, I remember him coming home and just physically throwing me out, telling me get the hell out, that I was no good. No man would ever want me. I was just nothing. And you know, it took me a long time because I didn't understand that this man that I had known since I was 3 years old, that I called dad, was so just bitter. He
Mm.
was bitter. He was angry. He had hatred for me. He'd go down to his bar and just speak ill of me all the time, and people just thought I was just this horrible person. And so I got bitter and I got mean, and I became a mean drunk. And so it was on every time he'd come home, and then he'd throw me out, and he'd call me in as a runaway. So they'd pick me up or try to pick me up. Well, in the meantime, my mom's in the middle of all this. She's just feeling so heartbroken. This is the love of her life,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she would put me up in motels. And so from the age of 13 until the age of until I got married, which was at 20, I was on the streets or motels or abandoned buildings. I was a complete drunk. At this point in time, until, well, at the age of 13, then I was introduced to meth.
Right. Right.
And then I thought, oh, this is just the end all drug, because now I can at least be in control,
Right.
and
Okay.
I won't be drunk. And in the process, I'm waking up with multiple guys. I'm feeling horrible about myself. But yeah, so then I got onto the meth, and I was it got to the point where, I think my longest was 11 days up off
Mm.
of meth.
Wow.
I was engaged to a actual cook that walked around with Uzis. He was a very violent person. I thought he was just the love of my life, but multiple times I'd have black eyes. He was very controlling. Um, Sorry, my cat's trying to
No.
freak out on me.
You're all good.
Okay, and so in this process, I one day, I got pregnant,
Mhm.
and then unfortunately, I didn't stop doing drugs. But which I to this day have a lot of guilt over. Um, but I ended up meeting this guy that would be my husband.
Right.
And he was 8 years older than me, and he was a very good provider. But he was a complete alcoholic, and he was a functioning alcoholic. This man is now a very, very he's got a good reputation. He's very a big wig around here.
Right. Right.
And so he was my drinking partner, and it
Yeah.
was toxic, but we had our good times. We ended up having 5 children together.
Oh wow.
Um, but it was constant, alcoholism, and he was at that point, I won't go into him,
Yeah.
but it was mutual,
Yes.
you know
Yeah.
and so
And sometimes that's all we know, right? Like it sounds from your stepfather to other relationships, we're drawn to that because that's all we kind of know growing up. It's
yeah.
toxic, but it's safe in the same way, in a dysfunctional way.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but this man was such a good provider that I didn't have to worry about not having a home.
Mm.
Um, that's where I was always, so this man gave me, and he did everything for me. Let me tell you, this man,
Aw.
well, I ended up divorcing him when I first got sober this time. But he was he did everything. I mean, from financial to everything. I did not want for nothing.
Mm.
And so then, like I said, throughout that whole time, I went to jail. I had 2 DUIs. I spent 48 days in jail
Mm.
because I quit the meth
Right.
at 28 years old. And but that was because of a geography. We went moved from California to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and so then my alcoholism just kicked in heavy duty then. Um, and I was, really wanting to quit. I mean, I would go to rehab. I would tell him I need to go to rehab. The alcohol's changing me.
Yeah.
It's making me do things I don't want to do.
Yes.
And so he put me through rehab several times, and I would have, I think the longest I had was 10 months.
Mm.
Um, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy.
Right.
I wasn't happy in my relationship. I wasn't in love per se. It was kind of a marriage of convenience.
Hmm.
And so during this time, of course, I had my children, my beautiful children. I have 4 daughters and a son. And they were embarrassed by me. I would do some crazy things.
Yeah.
And so then and then they got tired of hearing, I'm going to quit, and then reverting back to my old ways, or and then once I would drink again, I would just be like, you know I'm an alcoholic, screw it, you have nothing to say about it. And I wouldn't take their feelings into consideration. I was selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, do you want me to continue, or do you want to
Yeah.
ask
No.
some
No. That's
questions?
okay. I am blown away by your story, honey, and the fact that you're here, which
Yeah.
is huge in itself. Like, how inspiring is this?
Well, thank you.
I
I
just want to give you a hug.
No, I know. Okay, so then we'll step up to, like I said, I did 48 days in jail.
Yeah.
I had a 5150 where because that was every time I'd take a drink or I'd get drunk, I was just so miserable that I would just threaten to kill myself. I was barely hanging on,
Right. Yeah.
and so one night in my garage, because that's where I sat with my poor old dog Buddy. He was my drinking partner,
Oh.
and I would sit there and I got a hold of the first love of my life. Um, this guy was an amazing guy that I let slip through the cracks because I was a broken person back in the day.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we had known each other from San Diego. He was my first love. And I got on the Facebook and I found him, and he lived 5 miles from me here in Sacramento.
Mm.
And I was just like, this is just a sign. This is a sign. We've lived in the same place he's been here 20 years and I had been here 15 years. And I was like, this is just a sign. He's down the street from me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I got a hold of him, and he was in a pretty bad place too. He had just lost his 21-year-old son to brain cancer. So he was kind of a broken person, because I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I ended up leaving my husband, and it was just like a devastating, I for a year I was in a solid just quandary of alcohol and guilt because I had left my husband. And my husband had put me up in an apartment and filed for divorce right away, which I'm so glad he did at the time, because I knew that our marriage had played itself out. We were both toxic. I mean, during that year when I would try to quit, he would bring me bottles of wine, my ex-husband,
Yeah.
and wanted to keep me that person that he'd known for so long, his drinking companion, and that person that was kind of weak,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so um, then came the time that I was at my apartment and I had drank myself. Oh no, I got to plug you in. Are you there?
Yeah. I'm still here.
um, so I had to. I decided to go to Virginia
Yeah.
with my brother. My brother lives there, and I was just going there for a couple weeks to try to get out of the mayhem, because there was a lot of stuff going on with my ex-husband still wanting to get me back, and me being with Jay, and so I went there, and at that point in time I started doing meth again. And that's when I knew. In the meantime, my 5 children didn't speak to me. So, and I had 8 grandchildren at the time, and they were kept away from me. So for this whole year after I left my husband, I was just in utter, I mean, I felt like I was displaced in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't have my kids. I didn't have my grandkids. I didn't know if I had left my husband because I was truly unhappy, or if it was because of the alcohol, or if it was just because I didn't know. And so I left Jay, and Jay thought I was coming back, but I didn't. And and I did meth with my niece, and I just knew at that point in time. I got on my hands and knees and I said, God, either take me out, take me away, or show me what to do next, because I'm just utterly in the pit of hell and I don't know what to do anymore. And the next morning, my mom had kind of mentioned to me, because there was one rehab that I'd gone to before that I really liked.
Yeah.
Um, but they didn't take my insurance. But my ex-husband had just dropped $19,000 into my account. And I knew that $19,000 would either kill me or save me. And so I put $12,000 into a rehab, and I checked myself into a rehab here in Sacramento. I flew here. The next day I went into the rehab, and that was
Wow, honey.
April 17th of 2014. And ever since then, well, I think I was, because I went to AA
Mhm.
right after I got out of rehab. I stood up and told them I need a sponsor today. I got one of the best sponsors in the world. She helped me through my first year and a half of sobriety. And she suggested that I probably don't get into a relationship to try to get these guys that were what was happening, is
Yeah,
I needed
yeah.
to get love me.
Yes, yes.
And so I waited 6 months. Me and Jay split up. He went to Idaho, and my divorce was still going through.
Mhm.
And so at about 6 months in, I just knew it was time. I had prayed on it. My prayers and my connection with God had gotten so that's incredibly important in my recovery is my connection with God. God has brought me through this more than before it was just my will and my this and
Yes.
us, and no, now it's every morning I get up and I watch my Joel and my Joyce, and I spend at least 2 hours with God every morning before I even show my face to anybody.
Good for you. Yes.
And but yeah, I ended up calling him after 6 months, and I said, "Let's try this. Let's do this." And he came back, and now I'm engaged to him. We've been together this time 5 years. Um, and he's I've helped him through his grieving process. He tells me
Yeah.
that all the time. So, but, and I have 4 out of my 5 beautiful children back. One daughter still hasn't talked to me, and it's almost 6 years. She will not. I mean, and I understand.
Mhm.
I understand, but at, at this point, I miss my grandbabies. I haven't been able to, one of them I don't even know. And, but God has brought me through it. There's a reason for it, and I think it's because she's one of my biggest critics, and she was hurt pretty bad over my decision making and my embarrassment. So, and so here we are.
Yeah. Here we are. Oh, honey. What when we talk overcoming, that is I'm speechless again. A few times during the series I've been speechless. But what an amazing journey of and what you say about overcoming. And you made a good point that, we can't do it on our will anymore. Our will
Yeah,
is what got us in this. I'm speaking for myself being sober as well. Our will is what got us in this mess to begin with. Or the mess we had, not now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's giving it up and giving it over to God is truly, and now I have one of my oldest daughters that's living with me. She's has some clean time, and I just, I don't lecture her, and I try not to, but
Yeah.
I suggest to her what helped me this far, and her connection with God is just unbelievable, and the way she glows. And so, I mean, I would impress on anybody, it's never ever too late to start again and have the life that you can. I mean, I am so in love with my life, and I forgive myself. I
Mm,
forgive myself, which is a big one because my goodness, I did a lot of shitty things. Excuse my language, crappy
okay. That's all good.
things, and things I can't take back. But we're human.
Mhm.
We do things, and if God can forgive us, then there you go. That's the only thing that's important, and to forgive ourselves, and to know that there is so much waiting out there and so much to be present for. Now I can be present for people, and
Yeah,
it's just an amazing feeling. And so yeah.
I agree because I think that when I was on the route when I was contemplating for that brief moment to get sober, we think, oh my gosh, my life is going to be boring, or what am I going to do, or that, and we build up all these ors. But like you said, our lives are so much better, so
Yeah.
much better. The the freedom and how you even said at the beginning, how you love yourself.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I mean, seriously. And like, going back to my daughter thing, I sit and I contemplate it, and I think about it, but I mean, at first, I mean, I would be in the fetal position every night. I mean, it was just an amazing pain that I had never, because here I thought, oh my gosh, I'm doing the right things. I'm trying, I'm trying to be a better person,
Yeah,
better than I
yeah,
was yesterday. And that's all I can do. Now I
agreed.
know
Yeah,
that, all I can do is the next right thing in life. And I just pray and hope that one day she will come around, because that can't be easy for her. I was a part of her life. She just turned 30 years old, and that bitterness, even one of my other daughters said, that bitterness has got to be hard for someone to swallow, just being, and I had that for my stepdad. So
yeah.
I get
Oh
a
yeah.
lot. I mean, we ended up, he's passed on, but that last 5 years of his life, I was able to, and at his deathbed, I told him, I apologize for all that on my part, because my part was there too, regardless
Yes.
if I
Yeah.
was a young lady, I owned what I did, and I was not an easy person. I was, I was, someone to be reckoned with. I mean, it was not easy. I mean, I
Yeah.
was bitter, I was angry, and so, I did my thing, and he apologized to me, and I told him I loved him, and so that forgiveness was, I'm thank God for that.
Yeah. And I think the fact that we can forgive and accept ourselves, it's a huge empowerment. And that's where, you know, ever since was sober and in recovery, people say you're glowing. And I think that's it. The innerness now shines out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I so loathe myself.
Yeah. And then you continue with that vicious cycle,
Yeah.
then you're like, well, what's the use? What's the use? Well, you know what? Like I said, it's it's an amazing thing to wake up every morning, first of all, not in a jail cell. That's a plus.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Yes.
um, Not worrying about who I might have had an endeavor with. I was not a loyal person.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just, I wasn't, I wasn't me, and I wasn't
No.
free. And now I have hard times in my life. My goodness, I've, financially, we've been a little strapped. We've been struggling, but you
Right.
know what? We just now, God prevailed more than I ever could have thought. He just got it. My fiance just got an offer to go to Texas, and so he's there right now.
Nice.
And the offer is just amazing, and we're gonna not have the struggles that we had for all this time, but with each struggle that we had, I mean, every day, I was on my knees, and the Lord just filled me full of his peace, and the good times are great. And yes, there are going to be hard times, but you know what? Nothing like that vicious pit that you're in when you're just going through the motions, and you're trying to what is it, numb
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And especially with financial, I can see our brains, when you're in full addiction, your brains don't work properly and you don't
No,
make sense. Like I remember times that I was short in rent, and you'd think, well, F it. It doesn't matter. I can't pay rent anyways. I might as well go out drinking.
Exactly.
Instead of being an adult kind of thing and saying to your landlord or whoever, hey, I'm short. I can pay this. I'll pay you the rest in a week. Chances are that they would say, okay, Anna, thanks. That's okay. But no, I remember going off and not being able to pay it because I spent it all. That's
Yeah,
how you're not logical, and your brain doesn't work, and nothing makes sense.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now, I mean, it's so much different. And I've seen such an amazing, transformation with you too. I mean, I remember seeing your first thing where you were coming out and telling your story, and I remember just thinking, because I don't add a lot of people to my Facebook. I'm just like freak about that, but
Right. Yeah.
I was just like, this young lady's me and her have got a lot of similarities,
Hmm.
and I could just see the light in you, and you made such a big influence on me. You're such an influential person, and you should be super proud of you too, um
Well, I'm
and
crying. Thank you, honey. And
oh no.
I think for myself, sharing my message, and I think um, I didn't want to be an honest. I think that keeps, because people always say, okay, what keeps you sober, and that does sharing my message and helping walk other people through it
Mm-hmm.
keeps keeps me. Not that I think, okay, if I drink, I'm gonna let Lisa down, but you know, maybe that's part of my thinking. But I see the difference that my life is making for the positive now. That
Exactly,
that I don't want to go
exactly.
back there. I can't.
Yeah, no, and there's times when you have to replay that tape in your head. Where is this going to take me? Because there's times when I think, okay, well, I've never been this happy in my life, and that little thing in your head, that tiger, that sleeping tiger that goes,
Yeah.
oh, well, you know what, now that you're so happy, maybe you can be just like a no, and then
No.
it just go no, and I'm around drinking. I have not, the first year I was not, I mean, there was no drinking at all around me, you
No.
know what I'm
Same.
saying?
Yeah.
There's people that are normies in my life that can have a few beers and not, end up in jail. I mean,
Yes. I don't know how, but they
I
do it.
don't know. Or they can drink one beer and go to bed. And it's like, what? That's just not me. I
No.
am allergic to alcohol. It breaks me out in handcuffs.
Yes.
I'm mean. My tongue is just, I mean, can slay a dragon.
Yeah.
I'm just bitter and angry, and I'm,
Yeah.
depressed, and life is just futile with it, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I just know, and I play that tape over and over, and so yeah,
So
I'm
and
go ahead.
so you've said, for those who are listening, um, first step, we've talked about that life is so much better. God is huge in your life. What are the things kind of for people saying, okay, I've got to make a difference in my life, but I don't have a clue?
Well, I that's a good question. I just think that if you feel that alcohol, or if someone feels that alcohol is becoming too much of a, if it's causing you things, or making you a person that you make decisions that you normally wouldn't, reaching out. I mean, AA was a big thing. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, AA. I went to 180 meetings in 180 days, and I've kind of fell off, you know, per se, the last year and a half, of going to meetings. I think I've hit a couple with my daughter, but I would really suggest reaching out and hitting a meeting, because it's therapy.
Oh,
It's,
yes.
either that, or if you're someone that is dealing with somebody with addictions, Al-Anon. I mean, not,
Mhm.
it's
Yes.
just it's $1 a meeting, you know, I mean, if you want, and if not, just to sit and listen to other people that are going through the same things as you is such a comfort. And I would really, I mean, that would be one of my biggest suggestions is getting into that and making a routine for yourself. Balance is a big one. Getting
Yes.
enough rest, you know, but reaching out for the first, for at first would be my suggestion. Or if you don't feel that meetings are going to be enough, rehab, I ended up going back and working for the rehab that saved my life for about 6 months. And it was just such an experience to work with others,
I
that
bet.
yeah, it was amazing. And definitely talking with people that are addicts too. I mean, just us and our, you and I talking right now. I mean, and all the people that will be listening, it it helps you to stay sober, to
It,
help others, and to
yes.
reach out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I honestly believe everybody, whether addicted or not, should do 12 steps because we
Exactly.
all got
We all
baggage.
have
We all have
addictions
crap
some
that we're
sort.
dealing with, right?
Yeah, everybody. I don't know of anybody that doesn't have either a caffeine addiction, have a something that's not so good of an addiction, whether it's gambling, whether it's, I mean,
Yeah.
even men, someone that needs that male, and they're not so good. Their picker's broken, like I was saying before. You
Yeah.
know, just definitely
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it's definitely a plus.
Yeah. And I think also we want to know, let you know that you don't have to be alone. I mean, that's the beauty of AA is, or any type of, you know, group like that, is you're not alone. You'll hear stories. And I think no matter what story I listen to, and that there's, they all intertwine to the same kind of, we've all done the same kind of things,
Exactly.
different degrees of that. So it's good to go and listen to other people's story. And I think the first empowerment for yourself is listening and knowing you're not alone is huge.
Ex- exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that camaraderie is just, it's amazing what it can do. And seeing other, I had, before I found out we were moving to Texas, I tried to get into the Mercy Multiplied to help young girls,
Mm,
um, that had been going through the same things, that I had gone through as a young girl. Because, from being 13 to 20 on the streets, you know, that's a scary situation, a scary scenario,
yeah.
and then relying on men. So that one time that I did stay, at the beginning of my recovery, I took that 6 months, and I mean, I would do things that, like, go to dinner by myself and go to a movie by myself. I made my first steak on the grill all by myself, and it tasted so darn good.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're someone that's single and you're trying to get sober, get to know you, get to know yourself. I mean, it'll be so liberating, you know
Yeah.
and just to know that just makes you feel like, what, I can do this. I mean, but also going to the meetings, but just not feeling like you have to jump into a relationship
Oh yeah. Yeah.
with, someone that might not be so good just because you don't want to be alone. Believe me, you're better off being alone than getting into a toxic relationship. It will just start that cycle all over again.
Oh yeah. Agree. And I think I feel like a child again during my first
Yeah.
couple years. You do, because you're trying new things. You know, I did art class and I did cooking class and I did hikes, and you're just, life, I find every day is an adventure. It's like, what am I going to try today in a healthy way, right?
Yep.
Before it was
Like,
unhealthy, today it's healthy. Oh, no, I've discovered how much I like hikes. And it really does become, because you're looking through life in new glasses, basically.
brand new,
Brand
because
new.
for me, I didn't even have a childhood, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, there was really nothing to kind of compare what I was going to be, because I had never been sober long enough to know what I was, who I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I believed all these things, you know, with the ex-boyfriends and my stepfather that told me, you're not going to make it, and I believed
Mm,
it. And
mm,
even to this day, once in a while, that devil will come up and say, you can't do this, you
yeah.
know
Yeah.
and you got to just know that my God's bigger than any devil there, and I can do pretty much anything I put my mind to now, you know,
Yeah.
and I would I just love my life now. I'm just so in love with my life that, and I just hope that this helps whoever might be going through, that first part of it where it's, it can all just, it can all be just beautiful if
Yes.
you get time and are willing and open minded, you know.
Agree. Agree. Don't think that, what am I going to be like, or I'm going to miss this. It sounds cliche, and it sounds like, oh, it's going to be, you know, wonderful, but it's true. It sounds too good to be true, and I remember thinking that too during, my first meeting. People were saying, "Oh, my life is wonderful," and you're looking at them going, "Yeah, no way."
Yeah. Pink cloud. Somebody told me that at the beginning. I'll never forget. One lady goes, it's not, you're on a pink cloud right now. And I said, I am, but, and it kind of made me think, oh my gosh, maybe I am just kind of making it,
Yeah,
I'm too positive, and then I said, is there really such thing as being too positive, you know? And then
true.
I
Yeah.
remember coming back to that same meeting probably about 6 months later, and you could just see the difference in me. And people were saying, "Oh my gosh, there's just something different about you."
Hmm.
And it was, I know it was truly God speaking through me, and the light. But there's nothing about being positive. You can keep it positive and not get sucked into the drama and the negativeness of life,
Yeah. 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 And like you said, it doesn't mean, you get sober, stuff doesn't happen in life. It does, but we'll be able to respond. And something I work with a lot of clients too is you respond to it. You're not reacting. You're looking at it like you said, okay, how can I look at this differently? What can I do here? So life will
Exactly.
still throw those curves, you'll still wonder how you're going to pay rent. Sometimes you'll struggle, but it's difference of being able to deal with it rather than, okay, I'm going to go drink and figure it out when I'm sober someday.
Yeah, living life on life's terms.
Yes.
And that's, yes, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is. I never knew I could do it,
No, same, same. And
Yeah.
how you're responding, you're like, okay, I'm gonna deal with this, because freaking out, stressing, yelling at my whole family, it's not gonna solve anything. Got me
No,
nowhere to begin with. It's not, it's different.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I thank you so much, honey. This was an incredible journey that you've had, and I am so grateful we finally got to sit down and chat. And just, I applaud your courage for coming forward and sharing this with us.
Oh, well, thank you. It made me feel good too. I mean, this helps me, and it
Yeah.
helps me, and I'm hoping that the people that are listening, that they really do get an idea. I mean, young, it doesn't matter what age you are. I mean, it can happen. I was 46. And that's when I got it. But my oldest daughter, she's only 37. And so, I mean, it can. I've seen 21-year-olds that never drank again, and they're,
Yeah.
it can happen. So just don't give up. Keep reaching out. And there is definitely a beautiful life just waiting out here.
I agree. I couldn't have closed it better myself. So I love you so much, honey. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, I love you too. And I will see you on Facebook.
Yes, we will.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.